New planet Sedna, a voice returns for the ignored and abandoned, by Deborah Keel Levitt.
And one thing the first thing I wanted to say is that one of the foremost speakers on Sedna was someone who spoke here previously named Barbara Schirmer. And she just passed. Lived a really rich life. So I contacted her husband, and he was delighted and just very grateful to SDAS that we were going to make this a tribute to her. And if we get the sound working, I'm going to try to play an excerpt of her being Sedna. She was brilliant at that, and she gave me a whole new view of Sedna, and I had been studying Sedna for a year, day and night. I mean, she grabs you like Pluto grabs you. She's that intense. And so when I heard Barbara talk at an ESAR event, I went up to her, and I was starting to thank her and say something about Sedna, and I burst into sobs. And it was just a year of Sedna, and she brought her to life. And she said, yeah, Sedna's a tough girl. So we're going to be dealing with the tough girl this evening. But, and you'll understand the significance of the black butterfly later. But anyway, I'm going to move this then back to our start. And hopefully we'll get the bar to sound. If not, I'll play it privately for each of you later. So anyway, so basically I was describing her as a voice returning for the ignored and the abandoned. And I'll get into her mythology and the planet itself, because mythology and the planet are perfectly aligned. How many of you are aware of Sedna, and how many of you have studied her and know?
I've studied the mythology, but I don't always look at it in the charts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you do?
I don't know. I don't recall the blip.
Yeah, it's in Solar Fire now, so,
Okay.
and it's pretty standard, so you'll see it in a whole bunch of charts tonight. So
Yeah, that's what I figured.
yeah, no worries there. So anyway, glad everybody can hear me. Here is just to give you a sense of where she goes and where she is. Now this is, let me do this. Okay, this is our inner solar system from Jupiter in. And here is the Kuiper Belt. And this is where Sedna is right now. Just outside the Kuiper Belt. So, Pluto's here, and we have different Kuiper Belt objects that they're naming and discovering now. And this is her in the inner Oort cloud. And if you can see this, I'm sorry it's so faint, but that's how it came from NASA. But now you see that Pluto on into the sun. And this is Sedna's orbit, which they keep readjusting the time. But I would say, just to give you a general idea, it's roughly 11,000 years. So this is a member of our solar system. It's part of our family. But she literally moves away from us and comes back over an 11,000 year period. And she's very close to us now, so she's speaking to us. And so I'll go a little bit more into this. She was discovered by Dr. Mike Brown and his team. And if you know anything about, do any of you know about Dr. Mike Brown? He's a Caltech astrophysicist, and he likes astrologers, and he likes mythologists to help him name planets. And he wanted to add more diversity to, it's the Greco-Roman names is what we have in astrology for the most part. So he wanted to add diversity. So he wanted something appropriate to Sedna, and it just keeps playing out. And he is describing her orbit, and this is how important she is. He's saying the orbit of every single other object in the entire solar system can be explained, at least in principle, by some interaction with the known planets. And again, for you Oort cloud sticklers out there, the known galactic environment. Sedna alone requires something else out there. And this is a Caltech astrophysicist. This isn't somebody where they're going to go, that's a quack saying this. And it is, what is it? 7 years out, and this is now more than 7 years since they discovered it, but 7 years out, we still don't know. The hypothesized culprits have included passing stars, hidden planets, Oort cloud brown dwarfs, and of course, Sumerian-inspired alien conspiracy theories. He has a sense of humor. So, I guess he's speaking of Nibiru, which is a Sumerian word. Anyway, he says, whatever it is bound to answer profound questions about the origin and evolution of the solar system, as well as inspire many new questions we have never known to ask. So this is how profound she is. I wish I could get more people interested in this, because she's come back to talk to us. And she is, when I started using her in charts pretty extensively several years ago, and I consider her as powerful as Pluto, and somewhat similar in the experience process. It's very intense. So, to give you some idea about her, and as we know, planets appear to us when certain things appear to humanity, to our cultures. So when Pluto appeared, we know what we got, nuclear wonders and horrors, and, just, we can go back through all the planets discovered after the visible planets, and we see the evolution. And she and the other Kuiper Belt objects.
Sorry.
That's okay. No, I just want to make sure everything's okay. Okay, good. So, let's see. So, yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, there is that problem. So, yeah, yes, she is. Is she? Well, she rules animals, so, and she gets your attention. So, yeah, that would work. So I guess I'm probably done, since I don't remember what I was saying, but we'll go on to the next.
What year was it? Yes, it was 2000.
It was at 2005, 2003. I'll have it right here.
I thought it was
2000.
2000. Yeah.
2003. Yeah, it couldn't have. It was some of the other two
Yeah,
in
during
2005.
video times.
So it's 2003. I had to go back
That makes
because I mix up some of my Kuiper Belt objects as far as their discovery, but I thought she was kind of one of the first. So this is an artist rendering of basically what the sun looks like from Sedna. She's a red planet, by the way, and that would be another Kuiper Belt object in there. And I said there was a desire for cultural diversity and new planets, object names, and he works with astrologers and mythologists in the process. That was one of the things I was saying. Sedna's mythology, as being in the depths of cold, distant, mysterious space, beautifully suits a planet and her nature. And we are all touched by her through the Alaska current here, cold fronts and storms, her sea and her land animals, and within our own inner experience of injury, loss, betrayal, and abandonment. She also lives in that lonely place where we are the artist and the shaman, seeking to redeem ourselves, to heal and resurrect our spirits again and again through our art and through our love. So that's basically the theme I wanted. And Deborah, who is, as I said, my favorite living writer, and I like her in Neruda. I figured she'd be willing to be in that company. But anyway, she helped me today because I was looking for an analogy for Sedna, because one of the things that a lot of astrologers, they dealt with, the political ramifications of Sedna, the cultural ramifications of Sedna, and her as she acts in charts. But what I kept discovering over and over again is after the crisis, people, this immense creativity comes out of them. They become healers, teachers, artists, or they find a new phase in their art, or healing, or teaching. So there is that pearl, where you've got that grain of sand that's too painful almost to bear, and pretty soon you've got the pearl at the bottom of the sea that Rumi talked about. It's he referred to it, I think, in reference to singing, but it was basically that amazing gift that you have to offer when you go to the deepest parts of yourself in human consciousness. So just to give you a feeling of going through it before we even deal with our mythology, because frankly it's pretty brutal. This is another one of Barbara. This was when she was spoken Izar, and she was being Sedna there. She is shamanic in her abilities, and she was doing that. And it is steeped in the harsh yet beautiful world of the Inuit people of northern Canada, Greenland, Alaska, and Siberia, generally all the polar areas. She was the beautiful daughter of an Inuit man. She had denied all suitors, which so angered her father that he said she deserved no better for a husband than his dog. In some stories, she has human children and puppies from a union with the dog. Later, a mysterious man comes. Now, that isn't in every story. That's more the Canadian ones. Later, a mysterious man came, promising Sedna a wonderful, abundant life. He was this mysterious man with a black hooded cape type over himself, and so he was something very attractive. Once he had taken her to his island, he revealed himself to be a fulmar, or a raven, with no more than a nest for her home and nearly no food. And she was alone, starving, and her whales were carried to her father by another bird. And feeling remorse, he went to save his daughter. But as they sailed away from the island in his kayak, the fulmar found them and created such a storm with his beating wings that Sedna's father threw her overboard to save himself so that he wouldn't capsize the kayak. She grabbed the edge of the kayak and he cut off her fingers to save himself. And those fingers became the sea animals, the dolphins, the whales, some fish, and narwhals, some of the northern ones, but all sea animals essentially. And her finger, and then she became the goddess at the bottom of the sea who controls the availability of these animals for Inuit hunters, creating feast or famine. She rules sustainability is what she rules. In times of famine, the shaman is sent to appease her by combing and braiding her hair, as she now has flippers of a whale. That's her discovery, and I thought I'd think about what the shaman does. That'll be later. So the Sedna discovery chart, I guess it's not terribly surprising if you think about it that she'd be by the midheaven, because that's when she'd be discovered, with the sun down where they would be able to find her in photographs and that sort of thing. So, and you can see that there's a trine to Jupiter in that particular one. And it is, forms a yacht, well actually quincunx, with Pluto in this particular chart. But you get the feeling of what was going on, and what's more interesting to me is, since I'm a star person, we're talking about her in the constellations. Where she actually was, since she's a bit off the ecliptic, is in Cetus the whale. Now, do any of you know stars and know the meaning of the constellation of Cetus the whale? Well, Cetus it's called the whale, but it's essentially a sea monster. And when you have something strong, Menkar is the jaws of him. And if you have a strong Menkar, I've seen a lot of really brilliant artists. They know how to grab the gut of you. They know, they're very intense, very passionate artists. But it is really the unconscious of humanity in all of its wonderful and terrible forms. So when things rise up in this area, the ancients notice this, because there's the stare of Medusa here. And here's the jaws of Sedna, not Sedna, but the jaws of Cetus here. And any planets through this area of the zodiac, and of course Sedna was going up this way, is really between two very difficult things. So when you see planets traversing this area, it's pretty intense. And of course that would have been like right around 17 Taurus, if you were looking. Well, actually it's a little later. That would have been a little later in Taurus, but roughly in that area. So when they're there, it's something rising up out of humanity. Yeah, Jim? Oh, good. You got the tape going?
Yeah.
Terrific. Okay, great. It's November 13th, 2003, 10:32 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it's Palomar Mountain, so close by. So that's another thing. You can sort of claim her in some respects. So far, they haven't done any goddesses from here, but they did name Quahawar for Orange County, LA County area, where where the Tonga people were. So we do have one from Southern California, a god, which is a whole other workshop. So, anyway, that is the chart for Sedna. And, I wanted definitely to credit my other partner in Sedna, who's been a buddy for years, who actually tracked Sedna through the constellations for me through a program because I was too dumb to do it. That's Philip Sedgwick. I know he's spoken here at least several times, hasn't he? And I know he lived here.
He was an officer.
Pardon me?
He was an officer years ago.
He was an officer. I knew he lived here. So, yeah. So this was, thank you, Philip. I mean, he literally did all this for me. So I was thrilled to find out where it was so dumbfounding. Because it really is her rising out of the human unconscious into our consciousness. So, pretty exciting. She's going to be closest to Earth in July 2083. And I just did a new moon chart because it was within a few days of when she's supposedly closest. I think they're constantly recalculating these things, but we're close enough. It'll be within a few days of this. But you sort of you start to see what's going on with her. She's, when she's closest, she'll be with Venus, and in the area where the sun will be passing over her. And so it's a pretty intense time, and she will have had another square pretty recent to the, it's coming. She'll have another square to Pluto. I think there was one even before that, but she squares Pluto during that time. So I think, we can look at this time where I don't expect to be around for it, but I think we will be facing sustenance issues, the way we treat our planet, very in our faces during this period. So that's the indication I would see from her coming so close. I think that's her message to us, is to respect each other, to respect this planet that feeds us and takes care of us, and to realize that nobody needs to be thrown out of the boat to do that. So that would be my take on her in a general sense. Now, the last time, this makes it even more interesting, the last time Sedna was this close to Earth, the latest ice age was ending, and we were developing agriculture. So once again, she gave us, she came and we got the gift of agriculture. And it's kind of what we've chosen to do with sustaining ourselves and sustaining what gives us life. And I just happened to have some things over there. This was the Naphtaliya was there, the astronomical circle that's down in southern Egypt. It's actually in the desert away from the Nile. And they think some of the people may have moved on to, from there to Malta and on to Europe, like Italy and that area. And this is Göbekli Tepe. And they are finding some things. They haven't proven that it's astronomical, but they think it was, and they think it was an intentionally buried spot. It's in Turkey, right across the borders of Syria. So it's in a pretty critical area right now. But this people were doing this the last time she was here and close. And as I said, that's when we began to have agriculture, and we could feed ourselves without having to go out and hunt. So it's a pretty crucial time. So you start seeing, and I started looking through the ages, and it seemed like, we don't have that much material from those early times. So I just sort of used places where you could see these are the underworld goddesses, the powerful goddesses from that period of time, say from 7,000, 5,000, 4,000, 3,000. When you're getting into these areas, Malta has the oldest freestanding temples. You'll notice Deborah will like my bees. There's a Knossos bee, and I just was showing how it looks like a bee, but it's also the shape of this round dreaming lady that's in these dreaming ladies. Those are major goddesses. And this is an amazing carved out underground temple from that very ancient time in Malta. It's remarkable. And it's very much Mother Earth, and down, and this, of course, is Sekhmet, the Egyptian Minoan snake goddess, and Ereshkigal from the Middle East. So you start, this I think was where Sedna was speaking to us then, were these powerful underworld goddesses and the dreaming chambers and listening for voices, that type of thing. So we're just working our way up through Sedna now. Now this is Barb creating her costumes. So I'm talking about the creativity of Sedna. And I was talking about what the shaman did. When the world is out of balance due to too many transgressions of taboos, the men must dance away the sins of Sedna's fathers and ravens, Homer's actions, while the shaman, often a woman, goes to Sedna's home at the bottom of the sea to groom her, as she is bearing humanity's sins encrusted on her body and tangled in her hair. She is guarded by her dog husband and sometimes her repentant father. With her hair untangled and braided and all sins confessed, Sedna is once again happy and the animals return to feed the people. We can do this through reverent healing acts for our earth and seas, animals, children, and each other. That's essentially what this was about. I did have some music to go with this, but it was, some of you may recognize these names. Those are the two guys who wrote all the ABBA songs, Bjorn and Lars and Vinnie Anderson. I was looking for northern people because she's such a northern goddess, and we'll bring one there. And in the midst of this very dramatic, compelling song, it was, I'm amazed at all his words, soaring like a flight of birds. They all have birdmen, these goddesses. But the message they can bring is the flutter of a wing, making ripples in an ocean where the whales have ceased to sing. And it really was that sense of what we must do so that our children, so that the whales are still singing for our children, so that we're still hearing those underworld voices. And the mother goddess voices.
And now a really quick excerpt from Where the Whales Have Ceased to Sing by Josephine Nielsen from her CD Shapes. It was composed by Bjorn Ulvaeus and Benny Andersson, better known as members of and composers for ABBA. And what I loved about this piece, beyond the fact that it perfectly exemplifies Sedna, is the fact that the music makes the sounds of birds, which is prominent in the Sedna myth, and you have a sense of ripples on a quiet ocean bay in the music in the background. At the end, it gets more dramatic, and I highly recommend looking for the song on YouTube and then maybe purchasing it. If you can find it, it's a little bit rare, but you can usually search it out online. Once again, it's Josephine Nielsen, Shapes, and it's Where the Whales Have Ceased to Sing.
And I'll spend another night waiting for the morning light, like so many nights before, till his keys in the door. I'm amazed at all his words, soaring like the flight of birds, but the message they can bring is the flutter of a wing, making ripples in an ocean where the whales have ceased to sing.
This is the end of part 1. Next we'll go on to part 2, where we'll look at various celebrity charts to see how Sedna plays out in their lives.